Jonathan Quick signs a one-year extension with the Rangers. We talk about that transaction and why it's a great move for both sides. Also, Alexis Lafreniere is a problem for whoever is playing the Rangers on that night. We talk about all this, as well as the Rangers' 4-3 shootout loss to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1017 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So the Rangers drop a 4-3 decision in a shootout to the Toronto Maple Leafs. I honestly believe this is maybe the least upsetting, least concerning loss that the Rangers have had pretty much all season. It was a good game back and forth. I thought both teams played well and obviously could have gone either way. I mean, by the time you get to 3-on-3 overtime, much less the shootout, you're in this game can go either way kind of territory. And the Rangers have been so good in overtime and the shootout this year that, you know, they were almost due to lose one, even though they were very close to winning on several occasions. But we're going to talk about, you know, the game, break it down, and also want to shine the spotlight at Alexis Lafreniere, who continues what is a bona fide breakout season at the age of 21. It's hard to believe he's still just that young because obviously he came into the league as an 18-year-old with so much hype and hoopla and fanfare and didn't always live up to that. But obviously we're seeing him reach a whole new level this season, just continues to come into his own as a big-time player in the NHL. And we've gotten to the point now where, like, anybody who's still trying to call him a bust or anything along those lines, you're either just a Ranger hater or you're not paying very close attention, because anybody that has watched this team so far this season knows the kind of hockey that he's been playing and pretty well aware of the fact that something that I've said is that this is somebody you just don't have to worry about on a night in and night out basis. He goes out there, he brings it, plays good competitive hockey every single night. And obviously he has a huge hand in what has been far and away the best Ranger line this season, which is, of course, himself, Trocheck, and Artemi Panarin. And one thing that we got to talk about for sure is the goal that he scored. Obviously, this opened the scoring, gave the Rangers a 1-0 lead. This was just a complete snipe out of nowhere. Got a lot of iron and kind of a weird play because, you know, it catches the post and goes in, hits off the back of the net, bounces back out just as quickly. But the referee was right on top of it. He immediately signaled goal. They had a look at it. The goal call was confirmed. This was just an excellent shot. And part of the reason I say that is that, you know, Lafreniere and Kakko, they've had their ups and downs. We know that. There's times where it looks like they're about to take off the last few years and they kind of quiet down just as quickly, you know, just ups and downs. They had that nice run in the playoffs a couple of years ago as part of the kid line. But one thing that I think myself and maybe other Ranger fans who weren't necessarily like 100% sold on Lafreniere and Kakko like panning out in a big way, one of the biggest concerns for us, at least for me, was that there's just kind of a lack of wow plays from really both of those players. And there's a lack of them beating the goalie clean. Well, this one from Lafreniere, this is both of those things. This is a wow play, and this was him beating the goalie clean as a sheet, because I don't think there's a single goalie in this league, Nate, on this planet, that was stopping this shot here. Just an absolute rifle, a fast rising shot, and it catches the post and goes in, and nobody's going to stop that. And it gives the Rangers a 1-0 lead. And, you know, something like this happens and we don't have to go nuts anymore, man. You know, this is just kind of what we're beginning to expect out of Alexis Lafreniere. He's a smart player. Seems like he's always in a good position out there. Gave himself a chance here to take the shot and let it fly. Did not hesitate and wasn't even really that close to the net. I mean, it was decent scoring, you know, real estate or shooting real estate, but really, it was just the fact that it was a perfectly placed shot. That's the biggest reason why he scored here. And very, very encouraging to see Alexis Lafreniere scoring those kind of goals this season. But of course, that wasn't it for Lafreniere. He also had 2 assists on the night, had the primary goal on the marker or the primary assist, primary goal. What would that even be? He had the primary assist on the goal that was scored by Vincent Trocheck that gave the Rangers a 2-1 lead. Nice to see the Rangers for once score a goal in the shift after a goal being scored. That was a nice little 180 there and a nice little plot twist for all of us. But you've got Panarin going up the right side, passes to his left to Lafreniere. Now, Lafreniere can shoot here, and he's got that option for sure. I don't think anybody on the team, anybody in the fan base would have faulted him if he took this shot here, but instead he saw Lafreniere to his left, and that's kind of that high hockey IQ that we heard so much about with Lafreniere when he was coming into the league. Seeing Trocheck there in his peripheral, getting it over to him, Trocheck takes the shot, takes care of the rest, and scores. Now, of course, if it doesn't work out, if the pass misfires, or if Trocheck just doesn't score one way or the other, then maybe a lot of us are saying like, one pass too many. But you know what? Lafreniere saw his guy there, made an unselfish play, had the confidence in Trocheck that he could finish, and that's exactly what happened. And that gave the Rangers, again, a 2-1 lead. And while we're talking about this goal, I just want to shout out both Braden Schneider and Eric Gustafsson. They don't get official assists on this play, but they were on the ice, and all 5 Rangers on the ice touched the puck in succession, and all 5 of them made a play that made this thing happen because the Leafs were coming in strong on the rush. Braden Schneider did a nice job against his guy, standing him up, got him, loose from the puck. Puck just happened to go right to Gustafsson. He was there on the other side, and Gustafsson, an excellent pass up the ice, across the ice on the right side to Panarin. Panarin picks it up, gets the blue line to Lafreniere, to Trocheck, into the net. Rangers take the lead. So that was good stuff right there. And then the second assist rather for Lafreniere was another primary assist. He got that on what was the game time goal by Vincent Trocheck when Igor Shesterkin was pulled late in this game. Panarin takes a shot, Lafreniere deflects it, save made, Trocheck buries it. So Lafreniere is contributing in a lot of different ways and almost had the game winner in the shootout. Obviously, that doesn't count as an official goal, but regardless, would have been obviously a huge moment, game-winning moment. And made a great move. He 5-holed Samsonov, and I thought that puck was going in, and somehow Samsonov, even though the puck kind of got through him, I guess he kind of closed his skates quickly enough that he prevented it from getting all the way in. But be that as it may, another excellent night for Alexis Lafreniere, who continues to come into his own in this league. I mean, he's been one of the Rangers' best and most consistent players all season. Now up to 18 goals and 21 assists. So that's 39 points in 61 games. And honestly, those numbers don't do him justice. You got to remember, he's putting up these kind of stats without getting much power play time at all. Only 2 of his goals and 3 of his assists have occurred while the Rangers have been on the man advantage. So he's doing this basically all at even strength. And again, just having an amazing season, big part of that Panarin line. And one more thing that I'll throw out here before we kind of shift our attention to a couple of other things in this game. And of course, we got to get to the Jonathan Quick extension as well. But one more thing that I'll throw out there right now for Lafreniere. So when Ryan Strome was here and he was on the line with Artemi Panarin, everybody talked about how, Panarin elevated Ryan Strome. I mean, really anybody that Panarin plays with, he tends to elevate them. That's certainly true. But the one point that I always made, because, people would get upset with Strome and get frustrated with him at times. And, I would say, look, Panarin's playing the best hockey of his career too, and he's doing it while he's out there with Ryan Strome. And this is somebody that used to play on the same line with Patrick Kane, prime Patrick Kane. So you got to give Strome, his props too. And certainly you can say the same thing for Lafreniere and Trocheck too. Panarin is going to have the best season of his career. He's already got a career high in goals with 35. He could very well get to 100 points for the first time in his career. He's got 84 points in 61 games right now. And absolutely, Artemi Panarin, I have no doubt, he has certainly elevated Alexis Lafreniere this season. But again, takes 2 to tango. Panarin is out there having the best season of his life, which is a really high bar to clear. And he's doing it with playing with Alexis Lafreniere for the entire season. And Vincent Trocheck, too, for the vast majority of the season. But they're far and away the Rangers' best line. They are can't-miss TV. Do not, go to make yourself a sandwich or anything when the Panarin line is on the ice, because you might miss something awesome. They combine for some amazing goals in this game. And offensively, 5v5, they have carried this team all season and continue to do so as we enter the home stretch here and ultimately gear up for some Stanley Cup playoff hockey. Definitely can't wait for that. But we're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. I'm going to talk about just kind of a concept that kind of popped into my head watching this game. And of course, the Rangers lost. You want them to win and everything. But a thought that I had watching this game, and certainly when it ended, it is very difficult to beat the Rangers right now. I'm going to elaborate on that in just a second. Also got to get 2 extensions for both Jonathan Quick and Conor Mackey. We'll do all that fun stuff in just a second. But first, we got to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and much, much more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, we just wanted to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you, or rather, we have to let you guys know that we have launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it is available on Amazon Fire TV in the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. All right, so now let's officially keep everything rolling here. Again, just kind of a concept that popped into my head watching this game, watching the Rangers and Leafs battle and go back and forth, and a couple of different lead changes in this game. Nobody ever led by 1 goal, and then of course it takes 4 rounds of a shootout to finally determine a winner. But the big takeaway for me is that it is really, really difficult to beat the Rangers right now. And now, of course, on one hand, the proof is in the pudding. You look at what they did in February, they went 11-1. Clearly, that is the case. But when you dig a little bit deeper, I mean, think about everything that kind of had to go the Leafs' way in this game for them to get the win. And then when they did win, they just barely won. And I'm not taking anything away from the Leafs because they're a good team too, and they played very well in this game. Again, I thought it was just a good back and forth, 50-50 hockey game. But think about some of the things that happened here. The Rangers hit multiple posts in this game. One that really stood out, I forget who did it off the top of my head, but the Rangers were already up 1-0. And I think the first period was the period in this game that was a little bit tilted one way or the other, and in this case, in the Rangers' favor. And they came very close to making it 2-0. Again, I forget off the top of my head who hit the post there, but they scored there. Maybe they end up winning this game. There was at least one other post after that. And on top of that, the Leafs had, I'd say, 2 goals that were a little bit on the fortunate side. Certainly the one by Tavares that gave the Leafs the lead at 3-2 in the third period. Fortunate bounce there, went off of Igor, bounce off of Tavares like in the knee or whatever it was, and went into the net. So just a bad bounce there if you're a Ranger fan. So there was that one. There was also a goal by Nylander that looked like it went off Gustafsson on the way in and deflected into the net. So that's a bad bounce, obviously, as well for the Rangers. So puck luck was not on the Rangers side at all. And then, think about the third period. The Leafs, they've gotten a couple bounces. They're up 3-2. It's getting a little bit late. They're getting toward the end here, and they've held the 1-goal lead for, I don't know, about like 8, 9, 10 minutes, somewhere in there. And then it gets to a point where the Rangers, it's getting down to a minute 30 to go, and they got to pull Igor Shesterkin, and they do. And Leafs are thinking, we're going to get a win here, and the Rangers have other plans, because that's another thing that's really awesome about this team is they just do not die. And again, we talked about this goal very briefly a little bit earlier in the episode, but you've got Panarin shooting, Lafreniere deflection, save made, Trocheck buries the rebound. This is with just barely over a minute to go in the game. And so now, again, it looks like you got the Rangers in a spot where they have no choice but to pull their goalie. It looks like Toronto might close this one out. They're not able to do it. It goes to overtime. That was back and forth as well. A couple of chances for both teams. And then we go to a shootout. And not just a shootout, but a 4-round shootout. And not just a 4-round shootout, but one where the Rangers came within, a centimeter of tying this game, because Trocheck went in there. He's shooting for the Rangers in the 4th round. He has to score to keep the game alive, and makes a really nice move, rings it off the inside of the post, and somehow it bounced away from the net rather than in the net. I'm telling you, if that puck is a centimeter to the right, it's going off the post and going into the twine, and who knows what happens after that. The shootout does tend to be a little bit of a crapshoot, but regardless, again, that's a lot. That's a lot of things that, Toronto had to kind of withstand, and obviously, I do think they got a little bit of puck luck, and I'm not taking anything away. If there's any Maple Leafs no harm. I mean, no disrespect. I'm just calling it like I see it. Again, the Rangers are firing on all cylinders right now for the most part. I mean, there's certain lines that can step up and certain players that can play a little bit better, but they're winning at an amazing clip. And again, this game was theirs for the taking. It just was a night where, luck wasn't really on their side. And as I mentioned before, to me, this is among the least concerning losses of the season. If you're a fan of the New York Rangers, hopefully they just go out there and bounce right back in the next one. Another big test, though, going to be playing the Panthers on Monday. So definitely looking forward to that matchup. The other thing we got to talk about here, the inevitable Rempe section of Locked On New York Rangers. That's what we're getting into right now. Obviously, he's really kind of burst onto the scene for his willingness and eagerness to fight. And what is this, like his fourth fight now, fifth fight, whatever it might be. But he ends up in a fight with Ryan Reeves in this game. It's interesting because they first crossed paths in the first period. And this was after, Lafreniere scored. The Rangers are up 1-0. They're playing very well. I don't want to say dominating the first period, but I do feel like they've got the better of play for sure in the first period. And, being an enforcer that Ryan Reeves is, okay, this is my time. I go out there, I target the other enforcer, and I try to see if I can get him to fight. I try to see if I can spark my team a little bit. That's what he tried to do. He was asking Rempe, do you want it? And Rempe just basically ignored him and ended up skating off the ice and did not fight him. And give Rempe some credit here because we know he's willing to do this. He's even said he likes fighting. And I think, to stick in the NHL, he wants to do more and more of that. He's fighting at a much higher clip than he has. He fought a lot with the Wolfpack this year, but at other places, I want to say the OHL, there was a stat kicking around where he only averaged one fight about every 10 games or every 12 games, somewhere in that ballpark, did Rempe. And now obviously fighting a lot more often than that. So maybe part of the idea is he's doing everything he can to stick in the NHL. But smart here. There's really no reason to fight Reeves here. Nothing had really happened. And if you fight him, even if you win the fight, which first of all, that's not easy to do against Ryan Reeves, but even if you win the fight, Toronto still sees their guy out there. He's fighting and all right, we're fired up. Toronto's home. So that obviously jacks up the crowd a little bit as well. They get back into it. There's really no reason to do it. The crowd booed Rempe for not fighting, but too bad. He doesn't have to fight anybody if he's not feeling it at that point. Rempe was hitting in this game. Reeves was hitting too. Reeves put a big hit on Braden Schneider behind the net. Something else that I found interesting in this game, we'll get back to Rempe versus Reeves in just a second. But while we're talking about Rempe, that line, Rempe, Edstrom, Goodrow, I mentioned episode or two ago that, the Rangers right now, they seem a little bit hesitant to go with Rempe and Edstrom in a game that's close in the third period, but they got a little bit more ice time in the third period, a couple more shifts. That fourth line of, again, Rempe, Edstrom, and Goodrow, they were out there with 8 minutes to go, and the Rangers trailing, which was impressive. And clearly, the coaching staff is feeling a little bit better about them to give them a shift that late in the game. They were also back out there for an offensive zone draw down by a goal with only 6:42 to go. They went right back to Goodrow, Edstrom, Rempe. And this is also, of course, when the fight occurred between Rempe and Reeves. And Rempe delivered a hit in the neutral zone. It wasn't against Reeves. It was somebody else. It wasn't like a bone-jarring hit. Certainly wasn't a dirty hit. But Reeves wanted to go. He kind of pushed him, and it was challenging him. And Rempe actually kind of looked toward the Ranger bench, and then I guess he got the okay, or nobody said no, or whatever it was, and he ends up dropping the gloves with Reeves. I feel like Rempe was a little bit more tactical this time around. The other fights, it feels like it's taking turns punching each other in the face, him and his opponent, and just seeing who can stand up the longest. But he was trying to kind of keep Reeves away from him. He had his left hand on his jersey, was kind of, throwing the jabs a couple of times and trying to avoid that Reeves right hand, which he mostly did. Each guy landed a couple of punches, a couple of decent punches, but no true knockout kind of blows. I'd give Reeves a slight advantage here, but if you go up against Reeves and you lose, but you only lose by a little bit, it's almost like a win. And when the fight was over, Reeves kind of nodded a little bit, maybe a little bit of a show of respect there from a guy that's been doing this for him a long time. But again, Rempe answered the bell. You got to give him credit for doing that. I do think there's times where maybe this is bordering on overkill, at least a little bit. But be that as it may, this one, it just happened at such a weird point in the game. It's a 1-goal game. There's 6 minutes to go. It hasn't really been that nasty of a game. I mean, there's been some hitting. Reeves and Rempe have both been, throwing their weight around a little bit out there, but nothing like really over the top. But the fight happened, so it's a good thing that Rempe at least hung in there. And, again, I give Reeves a slight advantage here, but not by a lot. And like I said just a minute ago, if that's the case, you're fighting Reeves and you just lose by a little, it's almost like a win. So we'll give Rempe some props for that. The other thing I want to do real quick here, and we'll turn our attention then to the Jonathan Quick extension. Keandre Miller, I'm going to make him the unsung hero of this game. I don't usually do this after a loss, but he really impressed me. And he's somebody that, Ranger fans at times get on a little bit. Just a couple of little plays that he made in this game. It was a really good play by Miller early where he knocked the puck away from Knees as Knees was kind of getting to the net, broke it up. Also, a little bit later, you had Tavares. He was circling, and Mika and Miller kind of double teamed him at the same time, knocked him off the puck. And then Miller followed up. The puck basically ended up on the stick of another Leaf. And then Miller went over there, checked him down to the ice as well. You also had Miller, behind the net in the second period against Nylander. He was checking him, forced a bad pass out of Nylander, and then the Rangers cleared. This also happened while they were shorthanded. You also had Miller knocking Tavares to the ice a little bit later in this game. And then a little bit of offense from Miller. He takes a shot from the blue line, a good shot. Kakko kept the play alive. Miller pinched. He went to go get the puck along the boards. And in so doing, he ended up drawing a penalty against the Leafs. So that gave the Rangers a power play there. And if you look at Miller's stats, it's basically zeros across the board, except for one big one, and that's hits. He had 6 hits in this game, did Keandre Miller. And, there's some Ranger fans that, at times will get on him a little bit and they want to see a little bit more physicality because he is such a big, strong kid. And that's not completely unfair, for certain Ranger fans to want that. But we saw it in this game. Miller was out there playing a physical brand of hockey, knocking some guys down to the ice, just playing good, solid defense. And again, I don't usually do the unsung hero after a loss, but this wasn't a bad loss. And on top of that, Miller comes under fire, I think sometimes too much from Ranger fans. So it was nice to see him have, a strong game here. He also had 23 minutes and 19 seconds of ice time. That was second on the Rangers among defensemen, only to Adam Fox. And, the other thought that I had about Miller, I'll throw this out real quick. He almost feels like the defenseman version of Kreider, where people like him and everything, and he's obviously a good player, but you always feel like there's this other level that they're both capable of getting to, but they just don't all that often for whatever the reason might be. I've talked about this before, but 2 years ago in the playoffs, I felt like Keandre Miller was on the verge of superstardom. He has not gotten there. He's been a very good defenseman. I'll still say that over the last couple of seasons, but yeah, I don't know. Maybe Miller will yet get there. Obviously, he's still just getting started in his career, pretty much. What did he debut? This is like his 4th year, I think. So, again, solid player and turned out a heck of a lot better than a lot of other Ranger first-round draft picks. So you gotta at least give him that. But we'll keep everything rolling in just a second here. Want to shift our attention to Jonathan Quick getting a 1-year extension. Also going to talk about Conor Mackey getting a 2-year extension. And we'll do that in just a second. First, though, we definitely would like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know you're getting a great deal before you check out. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about Jonathan Quick, kind of the man of the hour here, the latest in the line of several Rangers over the past couple of seasons that have gotten in-season extension from the team. Quick's first season with the Rangers, what else can you say that we haven't already said on here? It's gone better than even the biggest Quick optimist, the biggest like Ranger fan optimist that you could possibly think of, better than anybody's expectations could have possibly been. And now he gets rewarded with a 1-year extension worth $1.275 million. It's slightly more than maybe I was expecting and slightly more than I thought the Rangers might be willing to, sign a backup goalie to. By that same token, he's earned it. I mean, you can't look at what Jonathan Quick has done this season and say that he doesn't deserve a boost. He was making $825K this season. And, going back to the offseason, when there were rumors that, he was going to sign with the Rangers, again, I feel like even the biggest optimist couldn't have seen this good of a season coming. But I think even those of us that like the signing, we were more kind of hyped about his intangibles and the fact that he's a great locker room guy. And obviously he's got that championship pedigree, 3-time Stanley Cup champion. He was a leader with the Kings for many, many years. Even the half season he spent with the Knights, they spoke very highly about him. All of his teammates, Adin Hill spoke very highly of him as well. Adin Hill obviously led them through the playoff run to the Cup last year. And we figured, he could kind of be a little bit of a big brother to Igor Shesterkin, but he just seems to be very well liked by his teammates. Seems to have fit into that locker room very, very well. He's just very, very invested in this Ranger team. At this point in Quick's career, he's 38 years old now. He's done everything there is to do. To me, he's a slam dunk Hall of Famer, 3-time Stanley Cup champion, one of the best to ever do it. So this could have just been his victory lap. Like, he could have just come in here and like, oh yeah, I'll play a season with the Rangers and we'll see how it goes, yada yada, and maybe they'll make a run through the playoffs and I'll tag along and get another Stanley Cup. Dude, he's been awesome. He's just been an amazing player for the Rangers this season, and they've really needed him. And, one of the more fun parts of the season, I think, was early, and this is kind of setting the tone for the kind of team the Rangers were going to be, because I think, once again, they are a very tight-knit team, but the Rangers had that game in Pittsburgh where Quick had to play, and he was outstanding, made 32 saves, got the shutout. The Rangers won the game 1-0, so, of course, they needed every single save that Jonathan Quick made on that night. And obviously, he's the first star of the game. And I believe he was interviewed after the game. And there's Peter Laviolette waiting for him in the locker room. And he gives him a big hug as he's coming through the tunnel there. So that was cool. And again, it just feels like Jonathan Quick is really fit in. And, as far as backup goalie is concerned, I mean, a couple of things. To begin with, we felt like the Rangers coming into the season, just like they did last year with Halak, it was kind of like, okay, well, they're not going to spend a lot of money here. You just bring in a veteran backup goalie, and you hope for the best when he's between the pipes, and you hope that he gives this team a chance to win. And Halak did that last year. Quick has obviously done that this year. But, I don't think any of us could have known the big role that he would play, because Igor Shesterkin went through the kind of struggles that we're just not used to seeing him go through, and he really slumped for a while there. I mean, to begin with, he got hurt in the fall, and, Jonathan Quick had to step in there and play a bunch of games and lead the Rangers to some wins. We even saw Louis Domingue for one night, but Quick was awesome throughout that stretch, and he was even better not too long ago when they sat down Igor Shesterkin. Igor was really, really scuffling, and Quick had to make 3 consecutive starts. He was awesome in all that starts. He's pretty much been awesome all season, and to get this out of a guy that was 37 when the season started, he's now 38, and somebody that, how many hockey fans did we hear say, oh, he's washed, he's this and that? Even some Ranger fans. There were some Ranger fans that were not feeling this signing at all. And I can't completely like kill them for that, because he has not been good the past couple of seasons, but he's been very good this season for the Rangers. And one other thing that I'll say here too, as far as like them signing him to this extension, I was thinking about like Ranger impending UFAs and RFAs not that long ago. And, maybe at some point we'll do like an early look at the class that's coming up this offseason for the Rangers. But when it came to Jonathan Quick, I'm thinking about him and like what it's going to be. And it's like, well, if he's going to be back with the Rangers, the ball is almost entirely 100% in his court. I wasn't sure which way it would go. If this is going to be a one and done kind of a deal for Quick with the Rangers, or if he would come back next season. To begin with, again, he just turned 38. So we didn't even know. We had no way of knowing if he even wanted to play any more hockey after this season. Again, it would have been a nice way to kind of wrap up his career, to come back to his childhood favorite team and just play one more season and then call it a career and wait for the Hall of Fame to call you. I mean, that's what Quick could have done. But yeah, again, we didn't know for sure, but obviously, clearly he wants to keep playing because he signed this extension. So that was first and foremost. Beyond that, though, again, the Rangers just are not in a place where they can afford to pay their backup goalie that much money. That's been the case ever since they pretty much had to trade Alex Georgiev. They've had to go the cheap route the past couple of seasons here. Halak, I want to say, was at like 1 million or 1.25 million, somewhere in that range. It might have been 1.5 actually, but not very much. Just don't have a lot of money to spend on that position. So what it comes down to with Quick, if he wants to be back on this team, if he would sign for, a reasonable amount, I'm sure the Rangers, based on the season that he's just had, would love to have him back. I mean, there's always some risk when you're dealing with, an older player, much less an older goalie. But again, all the things I've just said, why would you not want him back? would Quick want to sign somewhere else if they offered him more money? Or would he even want to go somewhere where he's got a chance to mix in as a starter a little bit more often than he has here with the Rangers? All those things were possible, but clearly he wanted to stay here. He is from the area. He's from Connecticut. Lifelong Ranger fan growing up, or at least until, he entered the NHL, and then that probably went away a little bit. But be that as it may, he still ends up re-signing with the team here, and I think it's an excellent deal for both sides. It's a well-deserved raise. Again, it's a little bit higher than I thought the Rangers might go with him, but it's worth it. I mean, they've solidified the backup goalie situation, and there are widespread rumors, again, that the salary cap will rise this offseason. And if that's the case, this contract won't look bad at all. I mean, honestly, even if it doesn't rise that much, they got to figure it out, because it's worth hanging on to Jonathan Quick for, the intangibles that he brings to the locker room and just how well he's played on the ice. And one other thing I want to throw out here, Drury has really been cooking with some of these in-season extensions the past couple of seasons. Last year, we saw Jimmy Vesey and Ben Harpur both get extensions, and, for certainly fairly reasonable cost. The two of them both with six-figure contracts. And, of course, Ben Harpur started the season with the Hartford Wolfpack. He got hurt, but, that's obviously unfortunate. But then this year, and this is all within the past couple of weeks, we see Johnny Brodzinski get a 2-year extension. We see Conor Mackey. We'll talk about him briefly in just a second here as well. He gets a 2-year extension, and now Jonathan Quick. And I got to give a shout out to Adam Herman because I think he absolutely just knocked it out of the park when it comes to this tweet that he sent out here. So this is what he had to say. Drury has figured out the blueprint for building the bottom of an NHL roster. Find undervalued players with something to prove, give them a chance, and then they want to stay and will give up money in favor of comfort, security, and loyalty. Vesey, Brodzinski, and now Quick. And like I said, you could even throw Ben Harpur into that mix as well. Again, he thought his career was over, and he ends up getting a chance with the Rangers last year and made the most of it. Played about as well as you could possibly hope for Ben Harpur to play. And I'll throw out a question here, and I don't think Ranger fans are going to be in on this idea, but I'll throw it out there anyway. Because at the start of the season, this sounded like an awesome idea. Now you're not so sure. But Erik Gustafsson, could he be next? Could he get like a 1-year extension with the Rangers? Do they go in a different direction? Do they bring in like another veteran defenseman, kind of a stay-at-home kind of a defenseman in favor of Erik Gustafsson? Do they promote from within? Does Conor Mackey become the 6th defenseman next year? If Zach Jones makes it through another trade deadline, does he become the 6th defenseman like for real next year? Ben Harpur could be back. Robertson, I mean, there's whispers about him, but you never really hear about him being all that close to a promotion. So maybe he's an option as well. But, Gustafsson, it's at least possible. And maybe now is the time to do it if you're thinking about doing it anyway, because he's not playing at quite the level he was at the start of the season. So maybe the price is a little bit lower. Might at least be worth a phone call or a conversation with Erik Gustafsson. So we'll see. Again, the one thing with Quick, there's always some risk, right? When you're dealing with somebody in their late 30s, getting toward 40, signing them to an extension, you never know when their game could really just kind of fall off of a cliff. But there's no indication that that's going to happen when it comes to Jonathan Quick. He's adjusted very much to life with the Rangers and as a backup, and so far so good in that role. So good stuff all around. Love the re-signing for Jonathan Quick here. Also, want to talk a little bit about defenseman Conor Mackey. He signed a 1-year deal as a free agent this season with the Rangers, and of course starts the season with the Wolfpack. He did play in one game with the Rangers a little bit earlier this season against Ottawa. A lot of Ranger fans like what they saw from Conor Mackey in that game. Again, it's just one game. You can't draw too many conclusions from it, but I did think he played well. He was a +1, had 16 minutes and 27 seconds of ice time on that night. 1 hit, 3 blocked shots, and also got into a fight. Mackey in his career, 27 years old at this point, just 40 games in the NHL between the Flames, Coyotes, and the Rangers. 4 goals, 7 assists. He's a -1, 74 hits, 33 block shots, but he's played very well for the Wolfpack this season. 36 games there, 2 goals, 9 assists. He's also a +13, and that +13 leads the Hartford Wolfpack in that stat. And I also got to give a shout out to Eddie on Twitter. He mentioned that Mackey could end up taking the 7th defenseman role for the Rangers come playoff time, and I certainly think that's possible. I said with Zach Jones, we did an episode not too long ago, I feel like Zach Jones, more so than anybody, is the most likely Ranger currently on the roster to be traded away from the roster for the reasons that I mentioned in that episode. And if that happens, you need somebody to step in as that seventh defenseman. And could that be Conor Mackey? I think he might be the next in line. I mean, we saw him promoted earlier this season when they needed to call somebody up. So that very well could happen again. And of course, he's played very well with Hartford. So he might be next in line. And of course, you never know. Maybe the Rangers, I don't think they'll do this. I don't want them to do this. But like, Keandre Miller's name came up in trade talks earlier this season. If that were to happen, it's kind of the same thing. You still need to promote somebody to that seventh defenseman role. I mean, I just can't see them trading Miller and then like Zach Jones is in the lineup every night and then Mackey's the seventh defenseman. Don't really see it, but I guess never say never. The bottom line is, though, if the Rangers do move any of their defensemen for any reasons, you'll need to call somebody up, and very good chance that could be Conor Mackey indeed. So we'll see how it goes there. But again, sounds like he's doing very well for the Wolfpack this season and is at least a viable option if somebody gets hurt, somebody gets traded, whatever the situation might be, if you need to add another defenseman to the roster. But figure we can pretty much call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well at LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that is at LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.